Hello everybody, this is Conquering History Games, and welcome to another guide to a nation in the world of Kaiserreich. Today we are going to be in Alpha 0.5.2, okay, and this is something I'm going to try to remember to start doing from now on, is start on the opening menu so that in the future, as Kaiserreich continues to be updated, you can see which... when I am doing this, what hotfix number I'm working on. So if we're on 0.6 and the Dominion of India has gotten changed for some reason, although I think it is basically complete, you'll know why there's something different between this guide and what's going on there. But the Dominion of India is a pretty complete country. So another thing I'm going to do different here is I'm going to talk a little bit now, just for a couple minutes in these videos, about the actual situation that has led to the countries being the way that they are in the Kaiserreich universe. So the Dominion of India is an offshoot of the British Raj in the original timeline. Now, the true moment of divergence, the most serious moment of divergence for how India develops by the time it's 1936, has to actually do not with India, but with events that were going on in the British Isles. In 1925, there was a syndicalist revolution sparked by a series of riots by Welsh miners that eventually spread across the country, that got so bad that eventually the British royal family fled to Canada. So that's why George V is over here in Canada, and the Union of Britain was created under Philip Snowden here as the head of state. When this was happening, the German Empire began to take a lot of the British colonies overseas, ostensibly to protect them from falling to syndicalism as well. That was the excuse for it anyway. And when the British and many members of Parliament fled to Canada, they wanted to hold on to India. It was the jewel of the empire. So in a matter of weeks, they passed the Anglo-Indian Act of 1925, which turned them into a full-blown dominion, much like Canada is a dominion. So basically, they gave them more rights. However, by that time, it was too little too late, because the Indian National Congress, or INC for short, had already created the commune here in the Northeast. And so what basically happened is there was a period of chaos in 1925 and early 1926 where there was a scramble for power. So the commune was based out of the Northeast and was trying to gobble up India. And in the South, there were several princes who were just trying to protect their own areas of control. And then eventually they formed together to create the Princely Federation. And the majority of the British loyalists concentrated around Delhi would form the Dominion of India. It was also during this time that land was lost to Nepal and Bhutan and Burma, so that's why they are also broken off, especially Nepal. You can see Nepal is much bigger than it usually is. There was also a Sikh rebellion, and in December of 1925, several Sikhs closed themselves up in Amritsar, which is a holy city of theirs. However, it was broken up by Arthur Hale and several native soldiers. And eventually, in January of 1926, there was the Governor General of India created the Free Dominion of India nation. And this is basically the people who hope that one day the royalists will return home to London. And while this was annoying to a lot of the royalists who are now residing in Canada, it was seen as a necessary evil if they were going to be able to hold on to any of India at all. And the Dominion of India still faces a lot of internal and external threats. Externally, obviously, from the Princely Federation and the Bharatiya Commune, and the Emirate of Afghanistan, who you'll go to war with relatively early, but also internal struggles between the different political parties, and even between those who are loyal to the more central government and princes. In fact, there is an event tree that could eventually lead to some princes revolting in the Dominion of India, and they become part of the Princely Federation within your own borders when the fighting begins. Which brings me to something that I will not be covering over the course of this guide. I am not going to be explaining how to form India peacefully in this guide, because I already made a guide specifically devoted to that. I'll be sure to have a link to it in the description below. And you could go and watch that. I think it's not too long a video. I think I had it capped at less than 10 minutes. Anyway, so that is in about less than 5 minutes the story of the Dominion of India. Why is it here? Why is it smaller? Why is it still in the Entente? So your head of state here is, in fact, George V with a sweet hat. But let's actually look at the situation on the ground, because he's over in Canada. He's not actually here in Delhi. Research slots. You get 3. Standard stuff. Construction. You have 12 factories. Half of them are being used in consumer goods. Well, technically 40%. Partly because you are on civilian economy, like most nations are at the beginning of the game, but also because you have the underdeveloped economy national spirit, which gives you 10% more consumer good factories, less factory output, and less production efficiency cap. This is quite similar to other similar spirits. You have the underdeveloped economy here and the backwards economy down south, which is actually worse than what you have to deal with. Now, of course, your goal here as India is to unite the subcontinent. But I'll get more into that in a bit. Military factories, you've only got 3 and a single naval dockyard to work with. Speaking of your Navy, this is it. 4 ancient, decrepit light cruisers. Not much. But when you compare it to the Princely Federation, who have 0, I suppose you can say that you're in a good position. Also, the commune starts with 0. So you could get naval superiority pretty easily and do some naval invasions, even without the Entente. Which, incidentally, if you did want to play that kind of a game, you could leave them immediately if you wanted to. But you're going to want to stick around, because the Entente is the best thing that you have going for you. Alright, now where was I? Oh yeah, so the military factories, you've only got 3. And let's actually look at the kind of research you have here. So you only have the basic infantry equipment. You do not start with 1. You do have mountaineers available, though. You have research support equipment and engineers. Only Viltkrieg tanks. What else was there? You have no predetermined land doctrine. Very little in the way of naval stuff. But you do have a couple things researched. What was it? You have naval bombers. And yeah, that was it. That's it. So you don't have a lot going for you. You're not like Japan or the German Empire where you start with electronic engineering research or anything like that. So you're very much starting from the bottom, or close to the bottom. But that's one of the fun things about these 3 Indian nations is, you could turn yourself into a world power as long as you unite the other 2, yourself with the other 2, and probably snatch up some of these other countries around you as well. All right, now, the power of the princes is also a problem. It is costing you more daily political power as well as lowering your national unity and division organization. Now, I know that national unity might not be a big deal now, but keep in mind that there are changes coming soon to base Hearts of Iron 4 where your national unity is going to be more important in a lot of ways. So this is a problem and something you're going to want to get rid of once you can. All right, and you're a social conservative, but that can change very easily. In fact, you probably do not want to stay social conservative, but I'll talk about that a little later. As far as your army goes, you have 22 divisions, a hodgepodge of cavalry and infantry, some with tanks, some with artillery, some with just rifles. Nothing particularly stellar. A lot of them are green, as you can see, so they're getting negative combat modifiers. You have 2 field marshals. You have basically, these are a mix of local Indian generals and British-born ones. So, for example, you have the Maharaj Ganga Singh here, who gets the charismatic trait as a field marshal, which is always really nice to have. It's kind of difficult to farm that in a field marshal, so anytime you have a field marshal that starts with it, that's good. He also has the offensive doctrine. So he could be quite good for, going on the offense, with his offensive doctrine. But you could also go with Percival here if you want to play defensive, because he has the defensive doctrine. You also have several generals, not amazing, but there are some interesting traits here. For example, the Winter Specialist and the Jungle Rat. Also, down here, you have the, oh my gosh, I am so sorry, all Indian viewers, Digvijay Shin Hijin Rajistan Sin Hijai, who is a fortress buster. Which is very important because your enemies will probably be building forts along your border via their national focuses, which you also have versions of preparing the northern and western border. But as the Dominion of India, the initiative is going to basically fall to you to go on the offense. Especially when you look at the focus tree, your fortifications are off to the side. It is implied that you are just going to want to go straight down and then attack them via preparing the final struggle, which, excuse me. Ooh, sorry. Excuse me. Terribly sorry about that. Which is similar to the ones in the other two Indian trees. So, there's a lot to talk about, so I'm just trying to think about where I should start. Okay, so let's talk about things that you can take right away. So this is cut off to you. You cannot prepare for the final struggle until you've hit 1937. Same thing with the unification of India. You cannot do this while the Federation and the Commune still exist. Nor can you join the ISAC, because Canada is going to determine when this happens. They have not formed it yet. Things that are available to you. You can expand your Navy. This will give you 3 naval dockyards, which is nice, considering that you start with 1. And eventually this leads to you being able to create a better Navy. So you could purchase Canadian ships, which costs you political power. Unfortunately, this is just not good at all. But the point is, eventually afterwards, you can then decide to go for submarine warfare or fleet and being doctrine. So because of that, if you want to do base strike, might not be the country for you. But this is the only exclusive choice you have to make. After that, you can work on your submarines, your cruisers, your capital ships, your destroyers, and then eventually you could rearm the Royal Indian Marine. I'm not going to talk about this because this is a very late game sort of thing. So, pretty cut and dry naval tree. Your Air Force tree, again, pretty simple. You do get an ace here, but it's pretty standard. Fighters or bombers, more air bases, technology bonuses, and then at the very end, you could get a reduction in your aircraft production costs, just like with the other Indian nations. Although you cannot do that until you have already unified India. So this is for if you want to continue to expand outside of the subcontinent. Then you've got your army tree, where you can reform the army here. Then you have to deal with the case of the princely armies and the diarchy. I'll talk about that once I actually unpause. Land doctrine stuff, and then there's no exclusive choices here, just research bonuses for things in your army. Armor and support equipment and infantry equipment and things like that. Now over here is the expansion of the civilian industry. You can expand the mines here, giving you better excavation, but you could just pass by it. But this is just where you work on your industry, and eventually at the very bottom you can get your new economy after you've picked up a lot of factories and infrastructure and things like that. And the new economy will get rid of underdeveloped economy. So you can rush down this way if you want to just get rid of that. Okay, so that is the focus tree as it looks day 1. Let's just go ahead and start reforming the army, and we're going to fast forward and start looking at events as they pop up. So, Delhi's Darkest Hour, whatever. Now, this is not a true Let's Play. I'm just going to be going through the early part of the game so you can see the events that are going to pop up. If you do want to see somebody play the Dominion of India, pretty well, I might say, I will have a link in the description below to my current campaign that I'm doing as the Dominion of India that is actually still in progress, but you'll have time to catch up. I release an episode of that every week. So, passing of King George V. The king is dead, long live the king, and now Edward is in charge. Everybody goes into a state of mourning. Now, some of these events that I'm showing you are new as of 0.5, so even if you're somebody who's played Dominion of India before, some of this might be new to you, as I've said. Because of this, your new leader is the Chamber of Princes, which lowers your division organization unity and increases your consumer good factories even more. So you're now spending half of your factories on consumer goods. Let's just have them make infantry equipment or something. Convoys. Alright, now, early on, oops, I thought we were unpaused. So, early on, something you are going to have to deal with is a war that is unavoidable. But first, there's the Imperial Conference of 1936. This is where all the members of the Entente, yourself, the French Republic, and everybody else are going to Ottawa to talk about what your plans are for the future. I'm not going to research anything. Let's go here. So, goal of the Empire. Basically, you are going to be faced... everybody is going to state their goals, and you can choose to get behind it and get political power. There's virtually no reason to not do this. So, What's the goal of Canada? Well, the Canadians want to get back to Britain. So 3 cheers and enjoy the political power. The Indian Empire. India must be reunited. That's what you're saying. And then everybody else is deciding if they want to help you with that or not. All right, Black Monday's starting. Doesn't affect you. So, investments in the empire. Now, this is weird because it talks about investing in the empire, and yet it gives you political power. But anyway, so you're just getting political power. It's giving you a nice base at the beginning. More political power. And here we have it. The conference is over. You get political power no matter what. And now the Emirate of Afghanistan has declared war. This would be the 5th Anglo-Afghan War. See, Afghanistan invades. We will drive them back and reclaim our lands. Because, as you will read here, when the chaos was happening in 1925 and 1926, Afghanistan took the time to come down here and sneak away with Peshawar and Quetta. And now you are going to take them back, which should be an easy task because they have 6 divisions or less. You have many more than that. And let's just let this play out quickly. It's going to be slow going because of the horrible infrastructure and mountainous terrain that your units have to go through, but it shouldn't be any trouble at all. And eventually you will get a pop-up about what to do about Afghanistan now that you've defeated it. But as you can see, Afghanistan can be torn up pretty quick. Now, if you're if you're very, very quick, you will get them to capitulate before you get a pop-up about how you've been beating Afghanistan. There we go. So I got lucky, and that's what happened. We will go ahead and occupy it. Now, usually you will get an event pop up where you basically have to decide between puppeting Afghanistan, just taking back your core areas, or occupying them entirely at the loss of political power. But here, you just got to occupy it, so you get this extra land and factories for nothing, which is really great. Now, if the pop-up happens and the peace conference is happening, just say that you want to just puppet them and then occupy them anyway, and you get to keep everything. So this is something else I was waiting for. The Imperial Durbar of 1936. This is where you decide who your head of state is going to be. This guy right here. Right now it's just Chamber of Princes. You can choose to either make it Edward VIII. He will take over from his father. Or you can choose to make it Ganga Singh here. There's no difference between them. And it honestly does not matter. It's just whoever's portrait you like more. Now, let's work on the Navy or something. Okay, but that doesn't matter. They've just become the leader of the Social Conservative Party, but what really matters is the election that is going to happen later in the year, where you decide which party is actually going to be running India. That's where you'll also get to decide who your ministers are and things like that. So this is purely flavor. Now, in 1936, in April to be exact, you are going to get your Dominion elections. And you have 4 to choose from here. You can either become market liberal, social democrat, or social conservative. They each have their strengths in their own ways. What you might want to take a look at is whose ministers you want to have the most. Now, you would think the Market Liberal Party would be best for your economy, but it's actually the Social Democratic Party because of the strength of their ministers. But there's strengths and weaknesses to each of these. But what you're just going to want to do, I'm not going to do it here with you, but I'll show you an example. All right, you can get Sastry as your head of government. Where is Sastry? And you see, and this is all you just got to do. You might have to take some time about it here. All right, here we go. Market liberal, flamboyant, tough guy. So if you went with the market liberals, you'll get more national unity, but less political power gain. Let's use a different example. Okay, so Khan. Let's see. If you go with Khan here, by the way, note that Gandhi is available. That's explained in my other video. Khan. Where's Khan? Right here. So yeah, if you went with the social conservatives, you will get more daily political power and more resource gain efficiency. So that's one difference between the market liberals and the social conservatives, for example. But it's just strictly the ministers. So like, for example, if we look at the social liberals, okay, you're going to get more consumer good factories, but also more political power. Better construction. This guy is actually minus 7%, so he cancels out more. This guy's consumer good factory effect, but he loses political power as well. So yeah, you get very mixed bags. Of course, you could just change your ministers later. So for example, this guy, let's say you don't like Jayakar because he's lowering your factory output. You could just go with, yeah, you could just switch it once you have enough for Henry Gidney here, for example, so you get more manpower in factories. So that's totally up to you. It's just purely a flavor thing, although some get better effects than others later. Let's keep moving on. The areas of India that you are going to be allowed to occupy are Nepal, meaning via focus, are Nepal, Bhutan, the Commune, the Kingdom of Burma, the Princely Federation, Ceylon, which is currently owned by the German Empire, and Goa here, which is owned by Portugal. Your main goal, though, is just to defeat the Commune and the Federation, although you will probably fight Nepal early on. But you can eventually get all the rest of them via the Unification of India focus. Also, as I have said before, over here is these 6 right here are really technically 7. The Princely Officer Corps, Socialist India's Officer Corps, Fate of the Squatters, all this stuff. This is how you core the rest of India. You could do this if you want the manpower, which you have a lot of as India. Look at this, you're on volunteer only, and you already have 1.58 million. However, it costs at least 100 political power, either 100 or 200 political power, depending on what you want to do, to take each of these focuses. It doesn't say it, but that's what's going to happen after it is complete. So, kind of a sort of spoiler for my Dominion of India campaign. I am currently in, I think, 1951, and I've still not finished coring everything. It takes a very, very long time to do. And there's probably better things that you could do with your time. So unless you need the manpower, I would strongly recommend that you ignore these 7 focuses and spend them on something else. Let me put it to you this way. 7 focuses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you took this here and then didn't take anything else until you had unified India, the time you could have spent just getting more manpower, you could have started working on a good navy. So that's all I'm saying. All right. Now, let's start looking at what some of these other focuses do. Starting with the question of the princely armies. Now, you cannot take this until you have your election, but it happens pretty early. This is basically, obviously, trying to. It's where you decide what to do about those princes. So you could assimilate them and get more army experience, or you could just let them go and you get no army experience but more political power. So it's just a scale, and you need to decide what to do. It just basically comes down to, do you really need to pay political power for army experience so that you could build new divisions or something? That's totally up to you. Or if you want to role play, whatever. Now, the status of the diarchy. This is where you actually change the power of the princes. I know that this has prince in it, but this is where you actually can change this national spirit. You can let the princes do what they want, and you will get more political power, organization, and national unity. And keep in mind, it says change. It's an effective change. So you need to do the math on your own. So, for example, Power of the Princes is already costing you an additional 0.25 political power every day. This option will reduce your cost by 0.25 a day and then do a daily political power gain of 0.10 per day. So you're not getting, it's not going to turn into princely domination of government where you get 0.35 political power a day. You're getting just an additional 0.1. Now, that was a lot of numbers, but I hope that makes sense. And you'll actually still be having negative division organization. Next is creating the princely pension. This is probably the best option because you get political power and more organization and reduced daily political power costs. And then this costs you political power, but you get more organization if you expropriate them. Also, remember, you can start changing things. At this point, I haven't been spending my political power on anything, but you can get ministers, you can change stuff. I mean, you don't exactly have a sinkhole of political power here. All right. The rest of this is all pretty standard. Now, let's take a look at the Indian Economic Act. Now, this is where your party choice might come into play because Remember, it is in increments of 20, where it is determined how popular you are, and the more popular your party is, the more daily political power you get every day. So you can make the market liberals more popular with this first option here, get political power, and change your trade law to free trade, which is pretty damn good in a lot of ways, particularly if you're on veteran mode. So this is arguably the best option, but you might not want the market liberals to get more popular if you're social liberal, for example. This is for the social conservatives, and this is an option which can change your economic law to early mobilization. Oh wait, no, over here. To early mobilization for only 50 political power instead of 100, but it increases the popularity of your radical socialists, and it costs you 50 political. Yeah, it costs you 50. Basically, think of it as you can change to early mobilization at half price, but you get more radical socialists, which is not a party that you can elect. Now, that could be bad, but remember, the longer that a game goes on, because elections are happening every 4 years, if you continue to choose the same party, basically every 4 years, you're going to be increasing your popularity by one square. So you can go from low to medium to high to very high. So there's no social liberal choice here. I guess we'll go with the market liberal one. And look at that. We've got over 400 political power now. But I've only got 26% popularity. What else was I going to show? Oh, yes, the Indian Industry Act of 1936. This is what you're going to do about the trade unions. Again, you can cost yourself political power to get daily political power gain. Get a little bit of political power to get higher production efficiency, or you can get a ton of political power to get better output and production efficiency cap by lowering your national unity. This seems to be the best option, but again, eventually national unity is going to start being more important than just making you die as Hearts of Iron 4 is updated. So keep that in mind. But I think that is all there is to it. I don't think there's any more events in these focus trees to specifically talk about. So we're going to now fast forward until some other events happen. Now, as India, you can more or less create your own timetable for when you want to attack the commune of the Princely Federation by either choosing to justify on them the old-fashioned way once the world tension is high enough, or what is more probably going to happen, you can prepare for the final struggle and eventually try to destroy the southern traders or invade the syndicalists. You could also incite rebellions, which will give you some more militia units, but they take much longer to do. They take 105 days instead of 70. So you might be better off just attacking. Keep in mind you have to have at least 300,000 manpower in your divisions when this happens. So for example, in this example that I'm showing, it's 1937, and I've only got 181,000 men in the field. So this can take a while to build up. However, you can get an opportunity relatively early to attack the Princely Federation. In this case, the Princely Federation has decided to refuse the proposed reforms. Now, for the details of how all this works, look at my Princely Federation Kaiserreich guide. But the point is that once they refuse the proposed reforms, they are going to explode. And the smaller Princely Federation states are going to break off and a war will begin. You will be given the opportunity to absorb Bombay. You can try to do it. They could refuse and you can go to war. In that same way, the commune can get a shot at Nagpur. Now, in this particular situation, the Princely Federation has refused to give me Bombay, and so now I have cause to go to war with them. Here is the problem. The Princely Federation you can go to war with, but also at around this time, there is going to be an incident in Nepal. Now, Nepal owns Indian land, and basically they begin to oppress the local Hindus while they're having some festivals. You then have options on what to do with about this. You can order them to withdraw and get yourself some political power, as well as getting cores on, where is it? Yeah, these two areas, Gorakhpur and Uttarakhand. You could go to war over them and get more political power, as well as getting those cores. And then a couple of units will rise up. Or you could just say, why support it, and merely get a claim on Nepal because they are oppressing your fellow Indians. So, just so you can see what it looks like, when you declare war on them, as you can see, this area will rise up basically immediately, and you get a couple of these militia units that are, you know, not very strong, but you can practically walk right into Kathmandu with just them. Of course, that's not going to be enough to get them to capitulate because they are at 85% national unity. But it is in this way that you can grab some more land for yourself pretty quickly in just 1937. Although keep in mind, after you're done killing the Princely Federation, that Mysore and Madras and them, you're not at war with them. They're going to continue to hold any land that they have down here. So here it is in November 1938. As you can see, I've eaten Nepal. I have eaten the northern half of the Princely Federation. You could choose to justify on these southern princely states, and it wouldn't cost you much or take very long because you do have claims on all this land, or you could choose to take out the big bad over here. I mean, that is basically all there is to it with India. Yeah, it's very similar to the other Indian nations in many ways, and different in others. But as you can see here, even just from these, I just took these 4 areas from the Princely Federation, and while still and on just a limited conscription, I've got almost 3 million manpower available to me and over 300,000 men in the field as of November of 1938. And there's a whole lot more waiting for me in the commune being run by Gandhi right now. But India is a really fun country to play as, in any of these factions, really. You do start technologically behind, but once you do unite the subcontinent, you are a superpower like few others. Also, one more thing. When you do unify India, even before you do it, actually, just as soon as you begin to occupy either princely or commune land, even after you take the Unify India national focus, you are going to frequently get pop-ups where rebels are destroying your infrastructure. So you might want to invest in some more civilian factories, particularly if you decide not to take these 7 focuses, which begin to core the areas. Because while the coring just gives you manpower, basically, it also stops sabotage happening in those areas that you have cored. So that could be an additional benefit. One more thing. If you do decide you are going to join the Entente, I would recommend joining the ISAC first, because this gives you your 4th research slot, or 5th, depending on when and how you do things, but this will probably be your 4th research slot. And because if you leave the Entente and the ISAC, then you're going to be technologically behind as a result of it. You also can get your 5th one here, and eventually get rocketry. If you stick around with the Entente for a little bit. And this is what Edward looks like if you make him your head of state. And what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and then Ganga Singh will eventually die, but not until the 40s. So you could use him during the unification. And the Dominion of India really has the path, I think, to the quickest unification, particularly with the backup help of the Entente. You really should get this done possibly in the 30s, certainly by 1940, 1941. Yeah, it's much faster than the other ones go. So I hope this guide's been helpful to you. I'm Conquering History Games. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and click the bell so you're always notified whenever a new video comes out. And remember that if you're a Patreon, you get to vote on what my Kaiserreich guides are, so you can be part of the decision-making process of the content that is on this channel. So check that out at patreon.com/conqueringhistory. And I will have a link to the Peaceful India Unification as well as my Dominion of India playthrough in the description below. Thank you for your time, and everyone have a wonderful day.